you need to build your goals around your life first. You need to think about the different aspects of your life before you go deciding on what you want to build in terms of the business.
One of the things about these meetings is so valuable and also cool from our coaching seats is really to see the progress made just in a few short months. Now this group for over 6 months, so you can really start to see their progress, know their businesses, know their teams, know some of their goals, and see that come to fruition.
The consistency of showing up on a 90-day basis. But something as simple as we had one guy that, to his own admitting, he said that he was not a data person. He didn't keep a scorecard. 1 quarter, this guy went from not really keeping anything to keeping a weekly scorecard, keeping a P&L, keeping like all of these numbers and allowing those numbers to start to help him run his business.
What is happening, beautiful people? Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Build Your Gym Empire podcast. You're in the right place if you're a gym owner, box owner, personal trainer that is looking to grow your gym, grow your business in ways that you, your team, your community, the people you serve, and not least importantly, your bank account are going to feel absolutely awesome about. Me and the guys are riding a little bit high. We just got out of one of our 4 annual in-person meetings. As we do a quarterly meeting, right? Every quarter. So we're riding high. We just got out of one of our quarterly meetings. We do every quarter with the members of the Gympire Mastermind here in sunny San Antonio. The weather was awfully nice, and basically wanted to give you guys a rundown of kind of some highlights of what happened, some takeaways from the coaches, and kind of share a little bit about what it is like to attend one of these meetings. So do you guys want to highlight anybody? What's a headline that you think somebody you'd like to shout out? Not by names. I don't know if they want us to share it, but what's a positive? What's a headline from a member you guys want to share?
Yeah, I think one of the things about these meetings is so valuable and also cool from our coaching seats is really to see the progress made just in a few short months. And I've been this group for over 6 months, so you can really start to see their progress, know their businesses, know their teams, know some of their goals, and see that come to fruition. So, seeing the bigger picture, you see some monumental growth, but even on the small little levels, like one guy sold a small piece of his business just to an investor, so where he could open up a second location, right? And he did that within about a month, about 4 to 6 weeks after the last meeting. Amazing hustler, like has dialed in and didn't just open some little shoddy little place. It was a place that was like, wow, they filled it, had a great launch. All that stuff, took the stuff he took from the last meeting, very dialed in, had very focused on his very focused hot seat, took his information, and then just went and ran with it. So seeing that hustle, finding a way to make it happen, I thought that was really impressive for sure.
Yeah, there's some element to like, holy fuck, don't be the person that does the least in the group. And I think he probably won, right? In terms of like, oh yeah, well, I sold a chunk of the business and just so you guys know, like he didn't sell a chunk of the business for 10 grand, right? He sold a tiny chunk of the business for a few $100,000. And since you don't know who it is, we can kind of give that information. And then, he had opened, the meeting was late January, and he had pre-sale, knocked out, doors were open, servicing people, really good sales numbers by like the second week of March. Like it was stupid. So there's some really cool stuff happening. Connor, what's one of yours?
I just think the consistency of showing up on a 90-day basis and kind of living in that 90-day world where you know that you're going to come to the table and the 3 of us are going to look at all the numbers, and then you have everyone else sitting at the table looking at all the numbers. So like you said, GR, you don't want to be the person that does the least, right? But something as simple as we had one guy that, to his own admitting, he said that he was not a data person, right? He didn't keep a scorecard. He didn't track numbers. And one of the things that we always talk about, especially Mark in his very, nice, cheerful way, is data dictates decisions. And within a 1 quarter, this guy went from not really keeping anything, like, and just kind of flying blind, to having a weekly scorecard, keeping a weekly scorecard, keeping a P&L, keeping like all of these numbers and allowing those numbers to start to help him run his business. Like, I thought was honestly amazing, because every gym owner talks about that. Like, oh, I need to get a better grasp on my numbers. I need to keep a scorecard. I need to have consistent meetings. And like, it's always just pushed down the totem pole and kind of kicked down the road of like, yeah, I'll get that going. I got to do this first. I got to, all this kind of bullshit excuses, but he literally got that in place. And not only in place where it's like, okay, I did it. Now I can kind of move on. He's using it on a weekly basis to start meeting with his team and actually start using it and putting it into practice, like within 1 quarter, which is kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking cool. And I
Yeah,
love
I'm
that you
pumped
said
for him.
flying blind, because I feel like like you picture being in a plane with no fucking instruments, right? Like that is the equivalent of running your business without a scorecard. And you don't know what your altitude is, you don't know how fast you're going, you don't know what angle you're on, any of those things. And to go from basically, literally, as you said, flying blind to having a clear scorecard implemented and multiple sets of data and whatnot, like that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah,
One of my
what I thought
oh, go ahead.
what I thought before you go is what I thought was cool is the first meeting, as you're sitting down and kind of going through it, like within your hot seat, like the questions that we asked him, he didn't have an answer
Mhm.
and he recognized that. And the second meeting, he did not come in with that same issue and same excuse of, oh, I don't have that. I need to get that. I need to do a better job of that. It was like he really had a clear scorecard. So like you can see my excitement as I say it, but I cannot underappreciate enough or
You can't appreciate
overappreciate.
it.
I always screw up my little saying, but like really, he came in so prepared and I was super proud and pumped for him.
Nice. Yeah, I think one of
And
mine
on
and
that
okay.
thought
All right.
note
GR
too,
keeps getting interrupted.
doesn't matter. The same thing. It's just a cool thing though. He went from like business is good, but I don't have really the confidence in it because he wasn't sure. And now he's tracking, and now his vision and his goals have gotten even bigger. Literally within a 3-month period, he literally unleashes your potential when you actually know the data. So that was really cool.
Nice.
All right,
Yeah,
GR.
is it okay if I no, one of mine that I thought was cool, and he called Connor Nostradamus, which I think is some sort of fortune telling, future predicting, whatever the hell. But this guy had like he ran into some pretty deep, what would be for an unprepared gym owner, a really fucking deep pit of adversity, where one of his very very key people uh decided that they didn't want to be one of his key people anymore and resigned. Literally, I think it was the week after the meeting. And in this case, this individual, and we told him that this would be the outcome. It ended up being addition by subtraction, right? It ended up being an absolute blessing in disguise. But I think to his credit, right, he took the information and the reps because he had the reps, he had the information from the meeting about, all right, team, and how do we onboard this and how do we hire that and so on and so forth. That when it happened, it wasn't, oh my gosh, this is some crazy big emotional thing. My business is going to break. I need to shut it down. Like, fuck this thing, whatever it was. It was, okay, well, here's what we do now. And now the business is better than ever. He's replaced that hire with a better hire that he's probably paying less, right? There's all these different positive things that came from it because he was prepared and he had the exposure to that stimulus, right? To that like negative thing. It was like he was vaccinated against like terrible employee things. That's probably going to get the episode like he was immunized against deeply stressful employee situations. He had already been exposed to the negative thing, and hey, it came out as a positive. So big testament to those guys. I thought it could make sense if you guys are listening to this. Actually, we talked about it before, but I think it would be a good idea now to potentially talk through, because one of the things that happens at these meetings is the three of us will share what's going on in our respective businesses. And we go pretty deep on some stuff that we don't fucking put out in public. Do you want me to go first and talk up the guy that keeps on interrupting me, or do one of you guys want to go? How do we want to go next? Like,
I'll talk about Connor.
oh my God.
Connor had some good
Okay, all
stuff.
right, talk about
His good stuff was he's always very concise, right? Very direct feedback. There's no room for interpretation, which actually was his main point during his talk. And I'll just say one line because I don't want to give away the whole thing, but just very simple was just there's a lot of room for interpretation with the words and communication in our business. And that's true whether you have sure one or two staff members, but especially as you start getting a bigger team, more locations where the owner is not under that roof. You cannot leave any room for interpretation and have be very clear and concise. I personally drew a lot from that, but I know everyone else did as well because that's an area that majority of gym owners aren't always as clear as they think they are in their own brains. So hey, he gave us a little crash course into how to be a little more clear and how to make sure there's no room for interpretation and really how to scale that across his team. So I really appreciate that. He did an okay job on the delivery. The information was gold.
Well,
Just kidding.
yeah.
Good joke.
You know,
Maybe you can get a little bit more clear with your video, Mark, and
you nailed it.
your glitchiness.
Maybe we could get some internet, and that would create some additional
Yeah, maybe
clarity. Yeah,
not in the backwoods of Michigan.
I'll go next. And to be clear, I took stuff from Connors that we are implementing sort of as we speak. Like, it was fucking huge in terms of, really creating deep clarity. Mark didn't do a complete shit job. Some of Mark's highlights, is basically kind of professionalizing yourself and your business. And we've talked about some of the different things in other episodes and whatnot. But man, Mark's got some fucking banger quotes that just like need to go up on the wall. Your struggles develop your strengths. Let me keep that one. Like, that's a fucking writer downer. I loved the concept of, to kind of circle back to what we talked about with the one particular member that got the scoreboard, is to defend the data, right? I thought that was just, again, one of those sayings that you can kind of, it's like a mantra, right? Defend the data, defend the data, defend the data. I thought was fantastic. Probably my favorite part of it that, you guys listen to this, the three of you that are listeners plus mom, and you hear us talk about growing the business and everything else. And, man, I thought it was super powerful because one of the notes, from Mark's kind of sharing, whatever you want to call that, the brain trust, if you will, was like, if you're going to build your goals, you need to build your goals around your life first, right? And you need to think about the different aspects of your life before you go building, deciding on what you want to build in terms of the business. And so, I think we talked about the idea of, hey, you might have a 5-year target. Well, what might be helpful is like, if you got kids, man, like 5 years from now, I'm going to have an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. That's a very, very different world than 6, 4, and 1. You know what I mean? Like, the amount of activities and things like that and things that I want to be involved in as a dad, like, that's going to change the way that I have to think about, where I want this business to be in 5 years. And I think, like, if you take one thing from this conversation, it's like, dude, take that amongst all the other fucking great takeaways. Connor, you got anything?
Well, I'm going to go to you, GR, right? Everyone else we've talked about, right?
Well, you can if you want. You don't have to.
Oh, GR, what can I say? No, man, I thought
It seems so natural and unplanned, by the way.
No, it's 100% natural. And that's why I said it that way, because I want it to be natural. GR, you literally gave a hiring masterclass in about 30 minutes. If you can recall the meeting, we were all supposed to, have a lot of time. Mark, just free for all, went about an hour and a half.
I get it. I was
It
told
was very good information, gold, but
unlimited
apparently
time.
our time doesn't matter to Mark. No, but GR, like the master class that you gave, and what was really cool is through a referral of you, GR, I was hiring, your specific talk was on salespeople, but I was hiring a VA during that time, and through a referral from you. But like, a lot of the stuff that you gave in terms of the information fit directly in there. And I think when it comes to gyms, things happen a little bit more natural, whereas a lot of gym owners are hiring trainers, right? So you want to see them, how they interact with clients, how they are on the floor. And it can be a little bit more organic, but some of the information that you gave, I think people are putting into practice, but you gave the strategy behind it. I think some of the people, like, they'll put people on the floor in terms of trainers, and they don't really know exactly why they're doing it or what they want to get out of it. But You gave so many of the strategies in terms of you want to have them try out, like you want to have them do something, you want to see how they do, and then you want to give them feedback to be able to see how if they're coachable or not. And just some of those little nuggets that when you start hiring people outside of trainers, maybe you start hiring people into your leadership team, or maybe you start hiring into people, some of the back end operations. I think some of those nuggets like are really, really good. And then one other thing that I really liked was of how you kind of communicate and coach the person depending on what type of personality they have. So if they're a little bit more ego driven, you're going to communicate and coach them a little bit differently. If they're a little bit more timid, within the interview process, you're going to coach them up a little bit differently. And I thought that was just it's information that you could literally take right now and go put into practice. It's not some like pie in the sky stuff. It's like you delivered a hiring, step-by-step process, and step-by-step process in terms of the one being able to be in the situation to hire, like within a 30-minute presentation. So I thought that was pretty baller, GR.
Pretty baller. Aw, you sweetie pie. Do you guys want a
Course.
hug? That was kind of sweet. That was kind of like nice across the board. Yeah, if you're listening, we are absolutely just hugging the shit out digitally via Mark's shitty office and that has terrible internet, and Connor and I actually operating within civilization. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff, gents. Good shit. So obviously, I think some really cool fucking stuff that came out of these meetings. Uh, to give a rundown of kind of the format of how we typically do things at these. So the Gym Hire Mastermind meets, 4 times a year. There is a pretty extensive homework process, a preparation process that every member has to go through before they get to the meeting. So there's some prompts and some questions and data and so on and so forth. Some review of the past quarter, some targets for the next one. That I think is certainly a major part of the juice for the meeting. In terms of the actual meetings themselves, like we said, guys, there's I guess maybe the Brain Trust is not necessarily an awful name, but the three of us will go deep on, any number of topics on things that we think are relevant to the group, on things that we're seeing in our respective businesses at this point. None of us are really babies anymore. And so I think it's sometimes nice to see, all right, these guys are maybe at a little bit of a higher level. They're ahead of where I'm at right now. What is going on inside their head so I can be prepared and shortcut, my success, right? And share from their lessons, so on and so forth. So we spend a ton of time on that. Then it is a deep dive into each individual's business. So everyone gets whatever it might be, a 45-minute, hour, what have you, hot seat, where we dive into the most pressing issues, questions, etc., for that person at that time. And the cool thing in this case is I think as the group develops, like this is not a group for rookies, right? And so there's a deep application process. I think we started the revenue target at like 30K a month in order to let people in. I think we're talking about moving that up. But in order to get into the Gympire Mastermind, you've got to apply. There's, I think, at least half the room has multiple locations at this point. The average revenue level in the room, and certainly if you count us, the average revenue level in the room is well over 7 figures. And so if you're sitting in that hot seat, you are dealing with, whatever it is, 10 other folks that are deeply invested in you solving your biggest problems. And it's 10 other folks that fucking know some shit, right? They're not asking rookie questions, like, oh, how do I get my first client? Like these are deep, high level discussions throughout the weekend. And then, we see what kind of goes on in the weekend, and then we'll sometimes add in additional brain trust stuff. So I have to make the joke. Mark gave one of the best 45-minute, 15-minute talks that I've seen, right? How much time I got? Yeah, 15 minutes. 15 minutes. 45 minutes later, we got to move into the next chunk of the meeting, but it was a deeply fucking valuable, 45 minutes, and we still got everything we needed to get done. And then there's always the fun stuff, it was pretty epic to have whatever it was, like 10 gym owners, 11, well, I don't know what the numbers were. And we're doing scooter gang, leaving the bars and da da da. Like, there's a lot of good, fun stuff that happens. And again, as valuable as the meetings are, some of the best conversations are the things that happen outside the lines, seeing idiots attempt to do whatever 18 million Scoville level hot chicken, at a crazy fun food truck park. So, uh, any closing notes on the meetings? If you guys, if you're listening to this and you're like, fuck, this kind of sounds like something I might want to do. You probably, I don't think we have a fancy sales pagey link thing, but if you DM us, we'll ask you some questions. If it seems like you might be a fit to apply, we'll send you that information. And that's if we have, spots available in the group. This is, and that's not false scarcity. I swear on my fucking 3 children, this is not false scarcity. Like, we keep the group small for a reason, because we want to have 2 days of deeply focused stuff where everyone gets the amount of time that they need to work on the biggest things in their business. So this is, we're not trying to make this a fucking 100-person mastermind or whatever it is. Like, this is a small group, deeply intensive thing where we are working closely with you, with the members of the group. But anything else outside of the crazy pitchy shit, guys?
I mean, just listening here, thinking, reflecting on the weekend, thinking of other hidden value things that come out of a mastermind. Um, and really it is, with all the people in that group, especially about dealing with team members. And so one of the guys as well, I have to share this really quick, is when you make a new hire. This case was a big new hire. And he was like, all right, I hired someone. I've never hired someone like this before. What do I do? How do I onboard them? What does the role look like? And he left his hot seat with a clear outline role, with a clear plan, onboarding, even for the next 3 to 6 months, even. And that is where the investment is made, in knowing what to do, having that clarity, what to do, not only like in a mastermind group like this, but also in the investment you make in your team member, because that is where the biggest loss of the investment, or the rate of return on the investment, can be slowed if you don't have that clear role, that clear onboarding, the clear cadence of whatever those responsibilities are. And the fact that you can come in and get that literally hand delivered, spoon fed, walk you through line by line, is invaluable. And especially somebody with a lot of team members, 30 team members right now, that becomes that's everything within the business, within your personnel. And so that's where it is. It's kind of the filter, like what GR was saying. The people in that room is not just multiple locations. It means they have multiple team members, and that's where things get muddy in business. So the fact that you can have that type of guidance and that insight, that's invaluable. And I think that's just coming. I used to think that way, but now I do. And it's everything. So that was just a huge win for him. I'm excited to see how that goes, because hiring the key people, especially as an owner, is everything.
Yeah, we didn't mention one guy is trying to onboard, like basically create a CEO so he can remove himself from his business. And we're working through that process. The guy you just mentioned, right, is hiring a deeply key, integrator, COO, whatever the correct terminology is for them, but a really high level person that, if he gets it right, and obviously he's got a higher probability, right, of getting this thing right. He's a very sharp guy, obviously, but, I think the insight from him, at least in his words, was deeply fucking valuable in terms of making the most out of that hire. Cause I think it sucks to get somebody that's really, really fucking good. And then, you drop the ball and you aren't able to capitalize on that and make it a worthwhile thing because you or your business, et cetera, wasn't ready. So deeply valuable stuff. We've got a jet for this episode, but again, if you're interested in the Gympire Mastermind, hit us at Build Your Gympire on Instagram. Shoot us a message. We can get you some of the information there if we have spots available. Otherwise, love, hugs. See you guys next week.